Okay. Before we get into the question, would you mind briefly introducing yourself
Sure,
first?
yeah. Absolutely. So hi, my name is Anshul. I am 22 years old. I am about to enter, seeing as this is about the UK, I'm about to enter a degree program in the UK in artificial intelligence. Um, yeah, I've lived kind of all across the world, a bit in the US, in the Middle East, in Europe as well. So yeah, happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Then, during this interview, we'll be discussing three main topics, which are education, social media, and
Mhm.
also culture.
So that's
So, for the first topic is about education. How would you describe the education system in UK?
Okay, so the education system in the UK is very similar to, I guess, a lot of places in the world in which the British were previously. But primarily, the education system in the UK is, the way it works is, especially sort of, I guess, after primary school, is you have these things called your GCSEs, which is grade 9 and 10, or the way they call it in the UK, it would be year 10 and 11. And GCSEs are sort of very important exams, and that's sort of in the middle of high school. And then you have your A levels, which you do at the end of year 13 or grade 12. And again, those are very important exams, especially those are very important for the university that you want to get into afterwards. So generally, those are quite intense and very sort of stressful times for everyone like involved. But yeah, I'd say broadly, like the British curriculum is very standardized as compared to a lot of curriculums in the world. There are sort of a variety of factors, but primarily, they have things like GCSEs, which if you go to a British school, regardless whether it's in the UK or internationally, everyone does GCSEs, at that point, and then they do, A levels at the end of high school. So yeah.
Right. Then, how difficult is it to get into a famous university or prestigious university in UK?
Sure. So I think, it's probably about as difficult as in most other places in the world. And I know that's sort of a big answer, but I think primarily, the UK is very uh focused on exam grades.
Mhm.
So what that essentially means is, like, say you have, so we were talking about your GCSEs and your A levels and other exams that you take during school. Those are very, very important, because you actually, when you get into a university, you have a conditional offer. And that conditional offer, the condition is basically based on you getting certain grades. So it's, obviously very intense. That obviously makes exam stress very, very intense too. But I'd say broadly speaking, uh, if you are interested, or if anyone's interested in going to the UK sort of for higher education for university, the best thing to do would be think about what programs you want to apply for, and really sort of understand how should I word this? How to demonstrate your passion and sort of the depth of your knowledge for that specific area. The UK is different from, say, the US, where, in the US, if you do other things such as like music, right, that's still sort of a plus. While the UK is very much interested in just how good you are at that specific thing, right? So, say you wanted to do engineering, right, then perhaps doing sort of side projects. It doesn't necessarily, obviously you need to do well in school, but doing things like doing projects on the side, which are engineering related, those are really how you sort of demonstrate your expertise and your passion for that area. So that's sort of the broad approach that I would recommend if you're interested in UK universities. But I'd say it's very achievable for anyone who's ready to sort of put sort of time and effort into it. Obviously, I'd say certain guidance is required. Generally, if you look at the university websites, you can email the universities as well. Obviously, I'm very, very happy to help and give advice in terms of how to sort of get in wherever possible. So please feel free to use me, or whether it's you or your friends, as like a resource. Happy to answer any questions at all. But yeah.
Oh, okay. And I want to ask about, um, in your opinion, how do British people generally view online learning or distance learning? Is in the UK there is online learning for the college?
Sure, sure. So I think online learning and online classes became a big thing during COVID and that whole phase. Obviously, I think that was the case for everyone, whether it's in the UK or not. But then I'd definitely say sort of since then, there's definitely become and this is, I would say, not just for the UK, this is sort of most of the world, right? There's become a very there's a very strong acceptance for online classes. In the UK, though, for most universities, they will have actual live classes. That's for most of the universities. I
Oh,
think that can obviously. Sorry, sorry. Wait,
oh,
can you still hear me?
no, just continue.
Okay, okay, okay. Right. So I think it's a case of there isn't online learning that much, but you can still engage with the universities online through other programs. So there's websites where a lot of universities will actually post some of their classes, and you can sort of do those courses and sort of develop your knowledge in any area that you're interested in via those platforms, right? So an example is, say, Coursera, right? There's a lot of different online websites in which you can actually engage with this almost the same class material that's being taught to the students in the universities themselves. But I would say within the universities, I think most institutions, broadly speaking, do at least hope to provide as much in-person learning as possible. There are usually some kind of, maybe office hours or that sort of thing might be online, but for the most part, it will be in person. But yeah, but I think, in terms of how in terms of how UK universities um, view distance learning, when you're applying, I don't think you're at any disadvantage or such because, obviously these universities have to understand that different people come from different backgrounds and, different circumstances. And the point is, as long as you maximize the opportunities available to you, I think you'll have a pretty good shot. So yeah.
Oh, I see. And do you think that is online learning is worth it or no?
I would say online learning. I mean, is it worth it? I think it depends on you personally, right? You or sort of the specific individual. But see, like for me, I think it is because I enjoy just learning on sort of my own time, especially because if it's live classes, you can sort of do it from the comfort of your home. If it's pre-recorded, you can watch it on like times two speed, right? So there's certainly a lot of advantages, but I think there are a lot of advantages to actually being there in person in the classroom itself, because obviously there's things like you can ask your professor questions, right? There's things which you don't exactly, and just sort of that feel isn't really there when it's online, right? Like people are just less hesitant to participate, and you can't really get sort of that atmosphere going too well. So that's yeah. So I'd say is it worth it? The broad answer, which isn't really helpful, is that it depends on you. But yeah.
All right, great. Thank you. I think it's depend on ourselves, right?
Right, right. No, exactly, exactly.
Okay, let's move on the second topic that is social media.
Hmm.
Mm, I like to hear about the social media in UK. And the first question is how popular is social media in the UK and which platform are most commonly used in UK?
So I'd say UK probably the same like the rest of the world, which is there's obviously different generations use different platforms, but there's like for the younger generation, say people in their 20s, I would say you have platforms like Instagram and such, which are obviously very common. But even for even for older generations, I think people still use Instagram a lot, and perhaps other platforms. I know Facebook is common with kind of like the I guess like our parents' generation, that sort of like age group. But I'd say, yeah, it is definitely fairly common. I'd say almost everyone that I know uses social media. Some people sort of, take phases where they stay away from it, like including me personally, right? I think like I have social media, but like just to sort of like focused on work and kind of put the distractions aside. I'll have like large periods where I'll just be inactive for social media, then perhaps active for a month, and then inactive for another like 5 months or So I think it depends, but yeah, social media is definitely a very big thing. It's how people sort of connect together, and yeah, certainly a very big part of the culture in the UK, and I'd honestly argue for most of the world, most of the Western world for sure. I'd say platforms like Instagram, WhatsApp, those platforms are very common. Yeah.
It's different in Indonesia. Actually, in Indonesia, Instagram and WhatsApp also very common, but there is one platform that very common in Indonesia, which is TikTok. You know TikTok?
Okay, right. Yes, yeah. So actually, sorry. That's so see, I'm not on TikTok, which is why I completely forgot. But yes, TikTok actually very common in the UK too. Yeah. So right. So I think it's a case of right, the same thing. The UK very similar to even places like Indonesia, right? Yeah, just social media obviously very common and rules a big part of people's lives. But yeah.
Yeah, because I think TikTok is very common all around the world.
Right, exactly.
Okay, do you think social media has a positive or negative impact on British society?
Ooh, that's okay. I think probably the negative impact, but that's just me personally. I think most people would argue it's somewhere in the middle. I think it is somewhere in the middle. There's good aspects and bad aspects of it, but I would definitely say that yeah, there's a lot that social media kind of portrays to people, and it does kind of create a very artificial version of people's lives, in a way, right? And I think that isn't necessarily great because you obviously just see a very curated part of people's lives altogether. Um, so that's sort of the bad parts about it. Well, obviously, it's great because at the end of the day, you're connecting with people who are like, completely, who live very different lives from you, who are very far away from you. That's obviously beautiful. You get to share a part of your life, which again is a very beautiful aspect. But yeah, I would argue somewhere in the middle, slightly towards sort of the bad side. Uh, Primarily because I think it distracts people a lot from, perhaps what they wanted to do. Say social media was not around, right? Kind of more broader goals. It's very easy to kind of like get distracted by it, and that's I'd say my personal problem with it. Which, as I mentioned earlier, I sort of use social media for say like a month, and then for another like 5-ish months, I'll like stop, and then I'll use it for like another month, and then like another five, I'll like completely delete all my accounts. So it's just that sort of thing. It can be very distracting. The reason why I do that is because just to sort of make sure that I don't kind of go into the rabbit hole of like scrolling just infinitely every day, which I think is very sort of falling that path. So yeah.
All right. I think for social media, I have a lot of insight here from you, and again, thank you.
Mhm.
And let's move to the last topic, which is culture. Uh,
Absolutely.
how would you describe British culture in general?
I'd say in general. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry, could you ask the question one more time? Sorry about that.
All right. How would you describe British culture in general?
Sure. I think British culture in general, I think when, obviously when describing anything, it ends up being sort of relative to other cultures. I say British culture, say in comparison to say American, is much more formal. Everything is kind of done a specific way. So it's yeah, it's just much more sort of strict and like within the lines. But I'm trying to think, if you have to look at culture, I guess, parts you'd look at perhaps sports. Obviously in the UK, football, big thing. Rugby also a big thing. There's other sports which are not as big as football, but still quite huge. Things like tennis and so on. I say, if I had to describe British cultures, it's hard to sort of do. But very rich when it comes to obviously when it comes to sports, when it comes to music, historically and now as well. Obviously, lots of famous musicians come from the UK. Even on kind of broadly speaking, like the acting world, right? There's a lot of movies and TV shows that are sort of UK based, so that they definitely do very very well there. But yeah, I'd say just if you have to look at culture sort of more broadly, take a step back. The UK tends to be a lot more formal with most things. Um, and yeah, that's I can answer specific stuff there, but I don't want to dive into detail on something which like won't necessarily help here. But yeah.
All right, then, in your opinion, is there any culture that really most interesting or unique in UK?
Any cultural humor in the UK, which is most interesting. Honestly, I couldn't really think of one. There's, different parts of the UK look very different in terms of traditions and such, right? For London specifically, it's massively international, right? There's a huge international community there, which, is absolutely beautiful, because we really have like a mix of cultures and fusions of different cultures in ways they didn't really think was possible. But yeah, I think it varies so much depending on where you are in the UK, because some places in the UK are a lot more like homogenous, and some places are very very mixed. But yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know if that helps.
It's okay. It was helpful. So I think this is the last question for the interview. And that's all from me. Thank you so much again, Angel, for your
Okay,
time
perfect. Yeah.
and for your sharing thoughts so openly. So your insight were really helpful and will definitely support my project. I truly appreciate it.
Okay, perfect. No, I'm really glad that I can help. Let me know if there's anything else that I can do for you, anyone else in the class. Yeah, happy to answer any more questions at a different time. But yeah.
I think for my project it's enough. Let
Okay,
me
perfect.
let me close the recorded first.